Well, welcome everyone to the June 20th, 2023 council meeting. This meeting will be live streamed, recorded and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound's website at www.parrysound.ca. And I'd like to acknowledge at this time we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850, which I was pleased to hear was ratified by both the provincial and federal governments the other day. And the Métis of this waterways of this region. And prior to the council meeting, we raised the Anishinaabe Nation flag tonight for National Aboriginal Day, which is June 21st tomorrow. And before this meeting, it was moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Ashford. Pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 is amended, Council of the Corporation and Town of Parry Sound moved to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address a matter pertaining to K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And that was guidelines on amalgamation discussions. That meeting was held and carried. Mover and seconder for the agenda. Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith. Is there any prioritization or additions to the agenda? Seeing none. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Oh, that's what it was. Okay. All right. Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor Ashford. Councillor McCann. That the minutes from the regular council meeting held June 6, 2023 be approved as circulated. Is there any discussion or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor then? That's carried. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to two proposed zoning bylaw amendments under section 4 of the Planning Act. I need a mover and seconder to adjourn the meeting. Councillor Keith, Councillor McCann. Do we now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open? All in favor? That's carried. Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public was notified of the first bylaw amendment Z2302 Ravi Frasher in trust?
Yes, Your Worship, notice was given by prepaid first class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property, and it was placed on the town's website.
Thank you. Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Mr. Rand is online.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. So for this application, the applicant has requested to change the zoning of the property from the existing zone of marine residential holding to special provision 26-135 holding. And I'm just going to bring up the site plan for council, just so that it makes a little bit more sense. There's a lot going on this proposal. So just bear with me.
While you're doing that, I'm going to mention that Councillor McDonald is online on Zoom as well.
Thank you. So everybody can see the screen okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So the lands are located on Great North Road. And I would note that these lands are part of the overall land holdings of Ravi Frasher and Trust that were heard by council last September. And we are in receipt of a site plan agreement for what we are calling phase 1, which is these lands here, or this portion of the lands. And these lands contain a hotel as well as a restaurant. The lands subject to the zoning amendment tonight are these lands to the south. And we are calling this phase 2, and we are in receipt of a site plan agreement for these lands as well. The development before our council tonight includes a 14-unit apartment dwelling with commercial space on the main floor. And my apologies, it's 15 units. The commercial space is proposed to be a marine office. 3 standalone residential units are also proposed. And the applicant has noted that while these would be separate buildings with 1 unit in each, it would be ultimately tied to the overall condominium plan that's planned for the future. In addition, there is a lighthouse lookout structure as well, along with boardwalks, vegetation, and associated parking. In order to implement this development, the zoning would add a special provision in order to permit a maximum of 3 detached dwellings, as well as 1 lighthouse lookout on the subject lands. The special provision would also permit the following additional regulations. The apartment dwelling may contain commercial space on the ground level or first story. The subject lands shall be exempt from minimum lot depth requirements. A detached dwelling shall be subject to the zone requirements of a row or townhouse. A lighthouse lookout shall have a maximum height of 20 meters. A lighthouse lookout shall have a minimum rear yard of 7.5 meters. An apartment dwelling shall have a maximum height of 21.5 meters, and the rear yard setback for an apartment dwelling shall be 0.0 meters. Staff would also note that the property subject to the zoning amendment is again part of these overall land holdings, which we're calling Harbor Bay, and these were rezoned last fall. That being said, the subject lands were not rezoned through that application. As a result, staff at this time are recommending a number of additional holding provisions, which would align with the zoning that was applied to the remainder of the property. And these additional special provisions are as follows. Site plan agreement shall be required. Completion of a development agreement under section 5126 of the Planning Act. Dedication of lands for parks or trails along the waterfront to the town or other means to provide perpetual public access to the waterfront to the satisfaction of the town, and addressing concerns related to the proximity of the propane distribution facility adjacent to the property to the satisfaction of the town. And that concludes my summary, Your Worship, and staff are here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. As this is a public meeting under the Planning Act, we call upon those in attendance if they wish to comment. At this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Or if so, please identify yourself by name and give your address. Welcome, Mr. Jackson. Well, you might have to press the side button. Right hand side. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. And Jeremy actually did a great job describing what's happened here. I'm just going to give you a little more background. I'm hoping that my little handout will make it abundantly clear what's happening here. This is actually something we call phase 1.2 rather than phase 2. This property, as we all know, is part of a brownfield, and interestingly enough, over the decades after the tank farm had ceased to operate, the former owner had actually received a record of site condition for the first 30 meters along the shore. So with that, we are able to, in fact, proceed more rapidly with what we would refer to as sensitive land uses. And as we drilled down into the details of the project, it became apparent that there was a couple of snags with respect to zoning provisions, and I've tried to highlight them here with my yellow on the handout, so that the furthest left rectangle is a decorative lighthouse, which is part of the program that we thought we would want to keep. Technically, it wouldn't meet the height limitations, so that's part of the bylaw. Then there are the 3 rectangles, which are what are called loft dwellings that technically aren't mentioned as permitted uses in the marine residential zone, but because they are part of now a remediated site, they're able to proceed. And then there's the marina complex slash apartment building, which had to, because of the way the site was configured, have a zero lot line along the south boundary. So those three elements are the subject of the public meeting tonight. So I thank council and I thank Jeremy for his help in this matter.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else at this time that wishes to speak in favor of the zoning bylaw amendment?
I'm sorry, my name is Sean Sharp. We're at 70 Great North Road. We just recently moved from Parry to Parry Sound in December. I'm not sure this is all good and new to me. However, we did receive some information in our mailbox.
Okay.
Great, what they want to do to the town of Parry Sound.
So why don't you come forward to the microphone, say who you are, where you're, like your address? Yeah,
Yes,
and
my name's Sean Sharp. I'm from 70 Great North Road, Parry Sound. We just moved to Parry Sound from Barrie, December 16th of 2022. When we looked at our place, we bought our place based on the area, the viewing, and the land that was around us. And I don't, this is a beautiful thing. I don't really understand a whole lot. If there was somebody I could talk to after. We did receive this in the mail, and looking at this, kind of looks like we're not going to be looking at the water anymore, possibly, or if somebody could maybe clarify a bit better to my wife and I on what we're gaining or if we're losing. I just wanted to.
I think the gentleman behind you that just spoke would probably have more answers. Whatever right now could give you those.
Okay,
whatever.
great.
And he can do that after we're
Okay.
like after we're finished this meeting.
Great, thank
Okay.
you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that can wish to speak in favor of the zoning bylaw amendment? No? Okay. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Well, I'll ask once more. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Okay, I don't see anyone. So, Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
Comments have been received by the bylaw department, the fire chief, and the fire prevention officer, who have all indicated no concerns with the application. And comments, were also received by the water department, who also indicated no concerns. Comments were received by Canada Post, who indicated that Canada Post will provide mail delivery through centralized community mailboxes on the north side of the 15-unit condo building. Canada Post also requires additional information from the applicant with regard to the proposed dates of construction. Comments received by Lakeland Power indicate that the developer must convey all electrical requirements to Lakeland. And further, it was noted that multiple services may be required and equipment availability is subject to supply chain conditions. Lastly, it was noted that easements may be required, particularly if any lot severance is planned. And no other comments were received at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will now move to the second proposed zoning bylaw amendment. At the conclusion of the description of that application and the opportunity to hear comments, I will identify the next steps for vote. Okay, this is number 2. Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public was notified of the second zoning bylaw amendment 2303 Rose and Brownlee?
Your worship, similarly, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property, and was placed on the town's website.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a drawing shown. However, if council would like a drawing, I can put one up. It is a bit more straightforward. And I would note that for this application, the applicant has requested a change in the zoning from the residential second density R2 zone to special provision 26.136. The proposed special provision would permit townhouses as an additional permitted use on the subject lands. And further to these special provisions would allow for the following additional regulations. A maximum of 3 townhouse dwellings shall be permitted. The maximum lot coverage shall be 33.2% instead of the permitted 30%. The minimum interior side yard shall be 1 meter instead of the required 2.5 meters. And the maximum height shall be 11 meters instead of the permitted 10.5 meters. These subject lands are located at 79 River Street and are legally described as south part of Lot 9 on Plan 21. Thank you.
Thank you. As this is a public meeting under the Planning Act, we call upon those in attendance if they wish to comment. Does anyone at this time wish to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Please identify yourself by name and give your address. Welcome again, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Council. John Jackson again. I'm actually here on behalf of the landowner, Mr. Mike Rose. What I've handed out for you is a sketch that illustrates the asks, and they're slightly varied numbers from the ones that Mr. Rand describes as the architect had finalized the plans the day that it was posted. So I just want to explain those as well. But what you're looking at here in the middle of the sketch is the proposal for 3 townhouse lots. They're squeezed between an 8-plex at 81 River Street and a 10-plex at 77 River Street. Many of old timers like myself will remember it's Jim Badger's old house, which actually is going to be removed and replaced with this. And this was somewhat inspired by the new building across from the parking lot of the Trestle that Mr. Disler put up, which I think
I
was,
like it. Yeah.
yeah, so it's that's a fairly attractive building. So
Yeah.
the asks are shown on this revised sketch. So I'd only point that out to you. I think it's a good fit, and it's something that will add to the housing need in the community. And I think Mr. Rose does a good job. So we're asking for council's support for these matters of relief. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Nope. Okay, does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? I'll ask once more, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Okay, not seeing anyone. Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
Thank you, Worship. We have received a few comments. Comments received by the building department indicate that the proposed driveway width of 14 meters is larger than what is permitted at 9 meters. Further, it appears that the landscaped area is less than what is required by the bylaw. There is an existing garage to the rear of the property that is that if maintained would not comply with the maximum lot coverage being proposed. It was also noted that a 1 meter side yard will result in a fire rating wall construction requirements under the building code. And lastly, it was noted that an Ontario Building Code matrix as set out with preliminary plans could be provided for review to ensure that the ability for the applicant to move forward at the building permit stage. On the first couple notes there, I would note that those concerns would be implemented through the bylaw that will be presented to council at a later council meeting. And with respect to the existing garage, the applicants have noted that the existing garage has an encroachment and would be removed as part of the development plan. Comments received by the Water Department, Parks and Recreation Department, the Fire Chief, and the Fire Prevention Officer all indicate no concerns with the application. Comments received by Lakeland Power indicate no concerns. However, they did note that the applicant should contact Lakeland to convey electrical requirements of the development. Comments received by Canada Post indicate that the project contains a common entrance. They will receive mail delivery as per current surrounding area, which at this time is door to door, but may change prior to completion. And lastly, the neighboring property at 85 River Street has noted that there is an existing garage encroachment. And staff have reached out to the applicant again, who have noted that there are plans to remove the shed from site prior to the development of the property. And that's all our comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The public should contact staff or check the town's website to see when each of these zoning bylaw amendments will come back for a decision. Council at its discretion may approve or deny the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If approved, council must either circulate notice of passing of the bylaw or give notice in the local press. Objections to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk within 20 days from the date such notices given, which objections we forward to the local planning appeal tribunal. If an appeal is submitted and the appellant has not provided counsel with an oral or written submission before the passing of the bylaw, the Ontario Land Tribunal may choose to dismiss the appeal. Thank you, and I need a mover and seconder to adjourn this meeting. Councillor Borneman, Councillor Ashford. That we do now declare the public meeting closed. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, on with the rest of the meeting. So next is questions of staff, and actually I have one tonight. And it's for our Director of Emergency Services, Chief Thompson. The fire ban that's in effect right now, and Canada Day is only a few days away now. And if that fire ban is still in effect, will that affect the fireworks? I know people have been asking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What's in place right now is a restricted fire zone that's put in place by the Ministry of Natural Resources. Restricted fire zone supersedes our own municipal bylaws when it's in place. And at this time, Ms. McNamara and I have been discussing this for the past few days, knowing that we were into a little bit of a dire situation. With the current situation and the restricted fire zone in place, we've had to make a few decisions, and one of those will be that there won't be fireworks on Canada Day this year. I think Ms. McNamara will be able to fill you in a little bit more on what the alternatives and what the adjustments will be to the program. But I have been in contact with Ministry of Natural Resources. They do not expect that the restricted fire zone will be lifted anytime in the near future. Not only is the entire Northeast and Northwest Ontario areas extremely dry, but there are also limited resources available to the Ministry of Natural Resources to respond to any situations that they do arise. And that's one of their reasons for keeping the restricted fire zone in place. So although not good news, it is safe news in that the safety of the public and the environment is our primary concern. And there are going to be many other activities going on Canada Day weekend. And I think Ms. McNamara will be able to speak if council wishes on what her plans are to do as alternative moving forward.
I think that'd be a great idea. Ms. McNamara.
Through your worship, thank you, Chief Thompson. As Chief Thompson clearly articulated there, safety is number one priority right now. We all know what it's like in the woods in our area, so we have to be quite cautious. That being said, the Canada Day fireworks will be canceled, but we are looking at and speaking with the company to pick a different date for these to happen when the firework or when the fire ban has been lifted. At this point, our crystal ball is not very clear. It's quite smoky right now, but Chief Thompson and I will work very closely together. And when a call has been made, the town of Parry Sound will see a lovely fireworks display. There's still many other activities taking place over the course of Canada Day weekend. Of course, we have the town's Rib Fest celebration starting on the Friday, running straight through to the Sunday. Saturday sees our traditional Canada Day activities with children's games, entertainment, live bands all weekend. And Sunday sees the return of the Lumberjack Challenge. We have 3 shows on Sunday. Tons of information on the town website. We look forward to seeing everybody.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Counselor Borneman.
First for Chief Thompson, I've had a number of calls inquiring about parking issues, parking on boulevards. I don't think this is anything new, but maybe enforcement's been stepped up. I'm not entirely certain. But this seems to come as a surprise to many people in residential areas. And I'm wondering how we get the message out where parking is allowed and where it's not allowed. And I think this problem, with developments that we're seeing coming on board, the problem only continues to get worse because you've got more vehicles and no more places to put them. So I'm not sure is there some kind of communication strategy that we can advise the public where parking is allowed on different streets?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor is absolutely correct, as this is not something new. The no parking on grass boulevards has been in place as long as I've been here and long before that, I am sure. And we have had general hotspots with regards to dealing with this issue in the past. Now, are there opportunities for better public education? Always. There's always opportunities for better public education, and we will I'll get bylaw enforcement working on that currently. I would like to relay that the reason the rules are in place is mainly for aesthetics, in that we want to keep our boulevards looking nice and keep the streetscapes looking nice. And we know from past practice that utilizing the boulevards, the grass boulevards for parking, wears out that grass and really takes away from the aesthetics of our streetscapes. So we will endeavor to better communicate to the public those rules moving forward in the future.
Thank you. Yep, Counselor Borneman.
Thank you. And this one for Mr. Cairns. Mr. Cairns, I received a call from a couple of residents on Prospect, Georgian Bay Avenue, who were most concerned about the speed of traffic, especially as summer approaches, and the number of pedestrians and cyclists on the trail and at the beach. And the suggestion was that we install rumble strips to slow folks down in those areas. And, I know that that's not really prescribed, a prescribed measure, but I put it out there for your consideration. And if there's an alternate means of slowing people down in those areas, let's move forward with it.
Through your worship. So certainly it's something we can look at alternative traffic calming measures. As you're mentioning, rumble strips and or speed bumps are not typically designed for on-street use. They cause a number of other issues from an accessibility standpoint, from different traffic, large trucks, emergency services, ambulances, those sorts of things. So what I'd suggest is that we'll do some data collection, because often what we're finding is that there's a perception of a speed issue more than an actual speed issue once we collect the speed data. for the majority of sites around town. So we have that ability and we'll relocate our radar signs appropriately to be able to gather that data.
Okay, Councillor McDonald and then Councillor Key. Okay. You're on mute, Councillor McDonald. There we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry. Yeah, I know this was brought up a while back by Councillor Ashford. I just kind of wanted to get an update perhaps on the status of the four-way stop that was proposed at James, Rosetta and William Street. Now with the detour going through Miller Street, has there been any more kind of like thought put into addressing that four-way stop with either stop signs or stoplights?
Through your worship. So we have finished the data collection over there in terms of traffic movements and speed, numbers of trips. And that's something we need to take a close look at. In addition to the configuration of that intersection, which is challenging. The geometry is not square. So it presents some challenges in terms of trying to design an all-way stop. And it is difficult because Rosetta is a low volume roadway in comparison, and evidence in traffic control and engineering doesn't always lead to advising for a four-way stop in those cases where you have a very low volume road intersecting a larger volume road. It can sometimes cause some other issues. So that's what we want to take a close look at, those actual volumes that we've recorded, and ensure that we're not going to create a new issue whereby folks on Rosetta or folks on James perhaps or William Street don't pay attention because there's hardly ever anybody coming the other direction. So that has happened often in rural settings where you see a low volume roadways. Sometimes the first thought is a four-way stop will slow people down, but sometimes it creates new issues. So we want to make sure we don't do that.
Okay. We're good.
Thanks. I have a couple more questions actually too. I also was wanting to inquire in regards to the status. I went down to the town docks because there were some concerns by the harbor master Bob Corrigan regarding some of the state of the bollards for the cruise ships to tie off on. And I know there's been some work done already. I just kind of wanted to get maybe an update and public update on what's going on down there and what's happening.
Through your worship, the town dock, of course, I think everyone knows, is not owned by the town. It's a federally owned piece of infrastructure. The town does have a head lease to operate and utilize the town dock. The federal government is very uninterested in maintaining its assets, unfortunately. Much of the maintenance falls to the town. And Councillor's absolutely correct in that last year we did notice some severe deterioration on a few of the bollards. And actually right near the end of the boating season last year, there was one particular bollard that started pulling away so badly that I had the engineering firm that we utilize come in, take a look at it, and they recommended ceasing utilization of that one particular bollard immediately. We worked with the users down at the facility to ensure that happened. The way that significant capital repairs can get done on the federally owned dock is through a cost-sharing mechanism. There's a maximum that the federal government will pay in any 1 year of $40,000, and that would be a match only if the municipality was going to put forth $40,000. We took I had the engineers do a preliminary plan of what the repairs would be necessary for. The federal government insists upon an engineering design for any repairs of significance that occur. They also insist that a tendering process occur, and they insist that they review the tendering process prior to any awarding of a tender. We did have the engineering occur. And this spring, I contacted the federal government representatives to ask them, okay, next step, let's start moving forward. And they were unwilling to commit to any cost sharing for these particular repairs until the fall of this year, the fall of 2023. We will be releasing an RFP in late summer for these repairs with a repair dates to occur in the fall. The town has budgeted through its capital budget our $40,000 towards this project. We will definitely need the federal government's $40,000 if we plan on going ahead with these repairs. The engineering firm has assured me that we will hit the $80,000 threshold for sure. We may have to scale back the repairs if the quotes come in significantly higher than that. And the intent would be to at least repair the bollard that's so damaged that it can't be used, and hopefully a number of the other bollards that are there currently. So I guess what I'm trying to relay is that this piece of infrastructure that we call the town dock is not owned by the town, and the federal government puts considerable amount of responsibility on the town for its maintenance and for any repairs that occur to it, as well as dictating the process in which those repairs occur. It's if you sense my frustration, it's because I am frustrated in trying to deal with the federal government on the utilization of this facility. It's a key component of what the town represents, and I find it difficult to work with them on many issues that occur down there. So staff will continue to endeavor to get these repairs happening at the lowest cost to the municipal taxpayers we can. And I will report back to council, and for sure, when there's a tender to be approved, it will come to council for approval.
Just so you're aware too, Councilor McDonald, I'd asked staff last week if they could prepare a resolution for the next this next council meeting coming in July, that we're requesting funding from the federal government to repair the dock to a much more substantial status than what it is right now. With the cruise boats coming in and the variety of new people and everything, it is a federal wharf, and the feds should be stepping up to make sure that it is safe and that it is totally usable, given the number of international visitors that we're having to the community. So anyway, and we need to push that out to our MP and others as well on that. So anyway, continue. You have another question.
Thank you, your worship. It's on the same line with that. Would the feds ever give that property to the town to control, and how?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. The federal government would be ecstatic if we would take over that facility, actually. That is the process. It's called a divestiture process, and that is the process we went through for Big Sound Marina. And the federal government ended up actually providing us with about approximately $1.4 million to effect repairs that were necessary at that federal facility when we took it over. We've done that. We have a wonderful breakwater and boardwalk at that facility now. We do own the entire facility. So from now on, the town is on the hook for any other repairs that occur there. That would be the same process that would have to occur for the town dock. The federal government representatives from DFO have approached the town on numerous occasions over the past 10 years with my predecessor, Limadaw, as well as with myself, about wanting to start that process. They have been very clear that they only have limited money in any given year to conduct divestitures, and that there are many, many federal sites across Canada that they would like to divest. So when exactly that would happen, I'm not sure. The negotiation process for the Big Sound Marina, which is much smaller than the town dock, was extensive. It was a 5 to 8 year process to work through that. And with all the engineering that had to be done to confirm what needed to be repaired and what didn't need to be repaired. So most definitely the federal government would love to divest that to us. The town would need to take a long, hard look at it in taking on an infrastructure of that significance and size and being on the hook for the repairs that are necessary to it for perpetuity.
Great, thank you. Through your worship again, just wanted to also inquire about the status of the XOPP MNR's building. Not sure if MPP Graydon Smith has pushed any further on getting that declared surplus, or if it's just kind of in limbo still.
I think it's stuck right now. That's probably the best word to use. The last I heard, yes, he was trying to push to get the property vacated. But there seems to be something in the upper bureaucracy and Ministry of Natural Resources that is stalling things. That's the most I know right now.
Great, thank you.
We're good? Okay, Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Cairns, first of all, I'm wondering if you can tell me what's the situation with garbage pickup? Because I notice William Street, there's a number of areas that the garbage still hadn't been picked up when I come to council meeting tonight. Can you tell me what the scoop is? That's my first comment, please.
Through your worship, our contractor had an equipment breakdown. So they have informed us that they are in fact sending 2 vehicles tomorrow to ensure that they're caught up by the end of the day.
I'm sure that'll keep everybody happy, except, well, it might keep also I was going to say the seagulls happy too, if those people don't bring their garbage in for the night. Might be a messy situation tomorrow. The other comments I have is just in general, although I am wondering if there also is a bit of a plan. And when people are walking on our sidewalks, because we have a lovely community, but when they're walking on the sidewalks and individuals own their trees, so the trees are on their property, but I've noticed in many areas now, it's getting to be, well, humans usually get a haircut sooner or later when they need their hair trimmed. But as for people owning trees that are theirs, but they're overhanging on the sidewalk, or there's again hedges, I'm wondering what the plan is for operations in either trimming them, or maybe it's bylaw and sending out a note, hey, you need to trim your hedge or trees so that it isn't impacting people, because there are people, whether they're on scooters or walking, people who have accessibility issues really don't need to be fighting with the trees. And along with that also, the same which again, I think some people would be concerned about lack of respect, is when people water their grass. It's great to water your grass, but you don't need to really water the sidewalk too. Like, I know tonight it's kind of warm, so maybe you want a shower, but there's still people that don't want to have a shower. And there's a possibility of slipping with water on the sidewalks, even on a nice day. Could you advise me of any plans there?
Through your worship, actually just in the last week, our complete scan of our roads and our sidewalks has been completed. So we'll be getting that data delivered shortly, which will inform us of any obstructions as well. So I think that the best course of action would be perhaps contacting each individual homeowner if we can, and asking them if they would like to maintain their own shrubs, trees, hedges, so that we don't have a conflict. Barring that, or should they choose not to, we do have the ability to trim trees and hedges and bushes that impact municipal infrastructure or extend on to the municipal road allowance. So we'll take a look at all of that. And certainly if there are more problematic areas, I would suggest that if folks could let us know, we'll certainly tackle those first. But we'll take a look at that data and identify the obstructions, try and contact the homeowners and see if they would prefer to maintain their own various growths around, whether they, as you said, hedges, some are, I know, are very attached to the way in which they're maintained, and we certainly don't want to adversely impact that, but we do have the ability to ensure that safe passage is there. The water situation is perhaps a little bit trickier. I would suggest that perhaps if we have some issues, we'll contact the folks and try and explain some of the concerns with overwatering or watering beyond, and see if we can't deal with those issues through that process.
So just for clarification, when you say contacting the folks, are you talking about somebody seeing what the address is and sending a letter or door knock, or what are we talking there? Because I think it really is important. And I would say again, that when I'm talking about trees, I'm talking about the trees that when you're walking down the sidewalk, you have to either bend down or you have to move around the sidewalk. I'm not talking about a little bit of trim. I'm talking about these are obstacles now, which are, it's really unfair to people.
Through your worship. So I'd suggest the obvious ones we will take care of. There's a growth very close to where we are right now. That happens to be an invasive species that is impinging the use of the sidewalk. So we are aware of that, and staff are going to be removing that entirely. So we will tackle the obvious ones. I would suggest that as far as the watering goes, if we can identify, I'm not sure how widespread an issue it is. If it's not extremely widespread, it might be more advantageous to just have a quick conversation with folks, kind of explain the situation. If we're able to make contact, if we're not, perhaps we can leave a letter just explaining the situation, and depending on the magnitude of the issue.
Okay. Council McCann?
Thank you. Mr. Kearns, a couple of things I wanted to bring up. We can come back to the intersection there at Rosetta and James and William, and you were talking about collecting data and such. Is it possible that and I could see where a four-way stop there would be difficult, even if people are stopping and paying attention to what's coming in any direction, but the sight lines are bad. So if you had traffic lights there and then the cars on Rosetta Street would trigger the green lights on their behalf when they approach to turn on to William or James, is that not like a safe and plan to go forward with for that particular intersection, much like I think some of the other intersections we have in town that are controlled that way? That's my first question.
Through your worship, certainly signalizing a traffic intersection is a safe method of control. I would suggest that I think we need to be cognizant of trying to solve issues that aren't necessarily haven't come to fruition. So often when we talk to the OPP about traffic improvements, they will, even the MTO for that instance, they'll ask about crash data. Have there been impacts? Have there been issues? So it is up to council to set that level of service. I would suggest that signalizing too many can cause its own issues. It does have a significant financial impact as well. Traffic control systems and lights are not cheap to operate. So I think where they're necessary, they're a great addition. If we're trying to control a perceived issue, that's perhaps not advisable to go down that route. So if we're every once in a while, and I think we see inattention in drivers at all intersections from time to time, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to control all of those behaviors. So if we try and institute a supersized control for a very minute issue, I would caution against that. That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, that's fair enough. And the other comment I wanted to make was I was at a meeting this afternoon where the DBA and members of the Waterfront Advisory Committee met, and there was a consultant that was there with a plan and talks about more beautification and moving it down towards the waterfront. But an issue came up that I thought maybe I would address this evening, is that the garbage receptacles over the weekends tend to fill up and are overflowing, and they become a bit of an unsightly thing. Where are we with being able to maintain those over those weekend hours?
So through your worship, staff are out on the weekends, maintaining those trash cans. So we can take a look at if there's particular issues in perhaps concentrated areas. Maybe we need more servicing available, or more receptacles available. But we do have staff out on the weekends taking care of that year round actually year round. Not for all of our locations, but definitely all of them in the summertime. Between Parks and Recreation and Public Works staff, they are maintaining those trash cans.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Wlasky? Your microphone?
Just for clarification, if we cut trees back and the hedges back on the sidewalks, it's charged back to the homeowner? If not, what are we doing to help them do it on their own? If you don't cut it, I will, sort of thing, you know.
Through your worship, I'm not absolutely certain on that. I would be hesitant to say that we would be able to charge that back to the homeowner, but I'm not certain of that. The advantage is if they want it maintained with a particular aesthetic, maintaining it themselves is much more advantageous than having us do it for them. Not that we're going to attempt to, cut beyond what we need to, but from an operational perspective, we need to remove the hazard, which is the biggest concern for our staff.
Thank you. Just another comment, Your Worship. If we haven't got a process in place to charge them for cutting, then I believe we should. Because you're not giving them any incentive to cut their own. Some people will just say, I don't care what it looks like, it's your sidewalk. We're putting staff out there that costs time, costs money. To keep it clean, and it is a safety hazard. It is a safety issue. Because a person on a wheelchair tries to go around it and trips and falls. Coming back on us, the two municipalities I came from all had bylaws in place that if they went in to cut your trees or your hedges, you paid for it. If you didn't pay for it right away, it went on your taxes. But I think we need some incentive to make these people look after their stuff.
So are you recommending some direction to investigate that?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councilor Keith? Any discussion on the direction? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, was there any other question or was that it? That was it? Okay. I think we're getting on with the agenda. We have a lot more to take care of, but a lot of good questions tonight too, and I want to thank staff for their answers. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Your Worship, there are just 3 items of correspondence. The first is from the Parry Sound Area Industrial Park. On the agenda, if anyone is looking at that, it's listed as asking if the town is interested in taking over administrative and financial, administrative management and accounting services. That's not correct. That's not what the Parry Sound Area Industrial Park is asking of the town. They're asking if the town is interested in providing water and wastewater services after Carling Township finishes doing that, or they've indicated they will do that only until January 19th, 2024. So the request is if the town would consider doing that. So this is being looked at by senior leadership team and under the Director of Public Works at this time. Expect something may be coming back to council at a later date. The second item is from Parry Sound Community Radio Association. This is a new venture that and the request, there's information about the benefits of community radio And the specific request is for the town to provide a resolution of support that would accompany the CRTC application plan for submission by October of this year. So unless there's objection or concern from council, this will come back with a resolution of support at the next council meeting. And the third item is from the Township of McKellar with request for information on the Town of Parry Sound Dog Impound Facility, the specific costs, and it seems that Township of McKellar may be interested in participating in that. So they're looking for more information. This has been referred to the bylaw enforcement department. There are a number of municipalities part of the agreement, so there will be some discussions with McKellar, and it may be that this comes back to a meeting in the future if indeed McKellar wishes to participate. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. Now we have a deputation from Nicole Leto and Chris Ripley regarding Enbridge Integrated Resource Planning Pilot Project. Welcome. And do you have a screen to share or whatever on any information, or just talking?
I can put that on, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for the opportunity to present this evening. I'm Nicole Leto, and I'm the Director of Operations for the Northern Region of Enbridge Gas. And with me tonight is Chris Ripley, and he is the Manager of Integrated Resource Planning at Enbridge Gas. And we're here today to provide some information on our integrated resource planning process and to ask for Council's endorsement as part of our regulatory filing for an integrated resource planning pilot project located within this community. Your voice as a council can make a difference in this project being approved. So what we're seeking is your consideration of a letter or a resolution of support for the project, which would be then included as part of our Ontario Energy Board application. The OEB application process will review the proposal, including any community support for the proposed non-pipe alternative pilot. And previous resolutions for support have made a difference. I'd like to tell you a bit about our integrated resource planning process and our project. IRP is an enhanced planning and strategy process where Enbridge Gas evaluates non-pipe alternatives that could be used to defer a traditional pipe project to meet a particular system need. IRP is meant to run alongside our traditional customer connection and community expansion efforts as we work with policymakers and a range of stakeholders to map out Ontario's energy future. IRP alternatives, or those non-pipeline alternatives, can include demand-side alternatives, which involve reducing or shifting customer consumption, or supply-side alternatives, such as compressed natural gas, renewable natural gas, or hydrogen. Alternatives can be implemented individually or in combination to meet the system need cost effectively while reliably maintaining customer demand. Next slide, please. Under the direction of the Ontario Energy Board, Enbridge is looking to develop and implement 2 projects, one of which will be located in Parry Sound. The key focus of these pilots is to explore and better understand how to design, deploy, and evaluate an enhanced targeted energy efficient program, and develop the ability and data to understand how these enhanced targeted energy efficient measures will impact peak hour demands. So the program involves offering targeted energy efficiency programs, such as providing incentives toward efficient equipment for homeowners and businesses in the pilot area, with the all-around effort to reduce the peak natural gas demand in that particular area. Supply side IRP alternatives like higher contracted pressures from TransCanada Energy or CNG are also considered in the pilot scope, where CNG could be used as a backup solution to ensure that Enbridge Gas can reliably meet any system demand requirements while these demand side alternatives are being piloted. So the map on the right indicates the pilot area where our Enbridge gas customers in the area will be eligible for enhanced targeted energy efficiency programs. Learning from this pilot will lead to better decision-making, informed system development, and will shape asset management planning for years to come. Integrated resource planning will benefit all Ontario ratepayers by providing the most cost-effective solutions rather than traditional infrastructure development. This pilot will also benefit customers in the community through efficiency programming that could help reduce energy consumption and potentially lower their energy bills. So in efforts to engage the community, our project team has engaged in calls with municipal staff. We've hosted regional webinars and recently hosted an in-person open house at the Charles Stockey Centre. The feedback and conversations from the open house centered around the IRPA program offerings and general interest in the demand side management programs. Any of the presentation materials that we had from those engagements are available on our website, and we encourage community members to sign up for additional updates. We do plan to return to the community after the OEB approval of the pilot application to consult with the community and to encourage participation in the pilot. But for tonight, we hope the information was helpful and would very much appreciate Council's endorsement for the IRP pilot project. And with that, I'll close and I will invite any questions, which Chris Ripley will be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. We don't have a resolution on tonight's agenda, but we can look at something for possibly the next meeting if that's okay. Are there any questions of any council member for the folks from Enbridge? Councilor Borneman?
I'm hopeful that if this is going to be on our next agenda, that you'll send your package that you've used tonight to us in advance of that date.
Yes, we will definitely make that available.
Councilor Keith?
Thank you. What I'm also wondering about is anybody that chooses to participate, what is their incentive to participate? Like financially, are they going to get something extra by participating and helping you out, even though it may be helping out the rest of the community down the road?
Yes, we will be having incentives on each of the measures, and it really depends on the measure, but we'll be actually topping up some of the government incentives. And we're going to present more of that at the next meeting once we get OEB approval.
Just for clarification, so if they decide to bite on this afterwards, as to whether there's any installation, if they afterwards say we want to pass at the end of the project, again, are they going to have to pick up any cost, or is there a cost recovery not to the property owner?
So we would work with the property owner on that if something was not right with the installation, but we're looking at better insulation, windows, different heating appliances, whether it's electric or natural gas. But we would work with the homeowner if something was not working correctly.
Any other questions? No? Okay, there are no more questions. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to the package and the extra information for our next meeting. That would be super. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, next to reports, and we'll start with Councillor Keith tonight.
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. My report will be short and sweet. First of all, I attended the Committee of Adjustment applications. There was only one that was passed and approved. I had very sincere desire to attend, and I did attend the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. Unfortunately, there was only a few of us. We had no quorum, so it didn't happen. I also wanted to say that I have gone down to the cruise ships each time they have come in again to welcome people. And I'm certainly hearing positive reports from people who come to Parry Sound. They see the benefits of our community and seem to think we're very friendly. So I think we just need to keep up the good work. And I know that Vlad is going to do a presentation tonight in respect also to economic and the cruise ships. But I hope that eventually we're number one instead of what I think is number 3 in the cruise ship line of when the ships come and how popular our community is. So I want us to be number 1 because we are the best. Also, I want to indicate that tomorrow, as mentioned, is Anishinaabe Day. But I also want to say it's the first day of summer and I like hot weather. So I say yippee, keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashford.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also, in keeping with the plan so far, it'll be short and sweet. Thank you so much, Bonnie. The one thing I really wanted to highlight that has kind of happened in last week was I was lucky enough to meet Gurdeep Pandar, who came, he was coming for HANDS, the Family Helping Network, who does a lot of children's mental health and different things like that. And I was asked to speak at their annual summer gathering in Huntsville on behalf of the board. Excuse me. And he was coming to do the workshop. And if anyone remembers him, he's been doing a cross Canada tour. He's a gentleman from the Yukon who does the Bagra dancing, and he uses his creativity and his gifts and his art to bring joy to everybody. So he certainly did that with hands, but having that bit of advanced knowledge, I was able to get him to come stop in Parry Sound as well. And he did an amazing job. He came, he brought joy, and I was especially proud of one of the students at one of the schools who really doesn't like dancing, and in preparations for his visit wasn't really excited about it, but she drew a picture of him because art is her way of expressing herself, unbeknownst to any of the adults, and presented it to him, and he posted it on his Facebook. And last I checked, we're over 6,000 likes of people, and a few hundred comments of people who that work of that young lady was bringing joy. So I really wanted to highlight that it was somebody kind of have unique skill dancing in the frozen tundra there up in Yukon and bringing that across the country, but also that kind of chain reaction is happening in our community, and it is spreading. So if you don't get a chance, if you haven't had a chance, Google Gurdeep Pandar and see if you can see his website, and if you get a chance, take a look at his Facebook, and you'll pick out this drawing pretty quick that this young lady did. Thank you guys so much.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Bielanski.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll be fairly short tonight as well. On the 12th of June, I attended a Zoom Chamber of Commerce meeting. It was basically business as usual. I'm sure Councillor McDonald will be able to add a little more in depth to it. And on the 15th, I went to a Park to Park Trail Association meeting. We spent most of the night discussing the Father's Day charity ride, which was this Saturday past. It looked like they were going to somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 vehicles on the trip, and they were going over to Sprucedale and then back with a meal at the restaurant when they got back. I haven't been able to speak to anybody. I couldn't attend it. I was tied up with something else, and I haven't spoke to anybody yet how successful it was, but I have a feeling it would be very successful. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow councillors, staff and public. Just 2 meetings to report on. One being the Parry Sound Public Library monthly board meeting, which was held Wednesday morning on the 14th of this month, and it was attended in person. We covered our 2022 audit and passed that. And then, of course, the next day we noticed that there was a particular error on it, and we approved the change. So that's done and taken care of for another 12 months. We had an update on our building. We're waiting word on the Northern Ontario Heritage Federation Corporation, a grant that we're looking forward to receiving to help us with our HVAC maintenance and repair. Also, with the and on that topic, we also approved a tender to move ahead with that work. Treasurer's report, CEO reports were also handled as well. And then this afternoon, I attended the downtown beautification meeting. I'm not sure that's really the best description for it, but from the DBA, there were also members of the Waterfront Advisory Committee. We met with a consultant and talking about some ideas about beautification, and particularly as we move down towards Bay Street and the waterfront. And many things were talked about, many ideas were suggested, and it was kind of a bit of a brainstorming session. These ideas will be taken into consideration, and we're expecting to hear more in the near future about that, and where we move forward as we try to really incorporate, I guess, the future with the cruise ships coming in, and with this area growing the way that it does, and our waterfront growing, and with the town and their new businesses coming in. We think that there's a good reason and to be optimistic that we've got a good future ahead of us. But planning is always so crucial. So we look forward to that report in the near future. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Barneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. I just say to Councillor Keith, per capita, we're far and away number one. We're punching way above our weight in the cruise boat business as is. I had a quiet couple of weeks until today, early this afternoon. We met with the Life Lease residents at Belvedere. Folks are somewhat happier, I think, as COVID restrictions are lifted and they have greater ease of access to elevators and other facilities within the building. Earlier this afternoon, I attended a session with the administrator and the chair of the board at Parry Sound Industrial Park in respect to how to proceed with provincial authorities and to get them moving to ease the bureaucracy with respect to approval processes. And as council commenced tonight, I was on a Zoom meeting with the Township of Whitestone regarding happenings at Belvedere Heights. I know we didn't answer all of their questions because we don't have all of the answers to give, but I think we're moving in a generally positive direction. And that's my report for this evening.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be short and sweet as well. On June the 13th, I visited the town dock and met with Bob Corrigan, the harbor master there, and got a tour of the town dock. It's been very interesting with the cruise ships coming in, and there's been a lot of activity down at the town dock, so it's great to see even in this time of year, like before the real summer rush. So that's very encouraging that we're going to have a very busy summer. On June the 14th, I attended the Downtown Business Association AGM. They have a lot on the go, full board. There's some talk of adding another event to Parry Sound in May of next year. There's talk of a maple syrup festival. It's in the preliminary stages, but I think that could be something that could be very interesting for the town. And today I attended the Downtown Business Association Waterfront Visioning session, I guess you could call it, as Councillor McCann's had touched on, and it was well attended. There was members from the DBA, our economic development officer was there as well, and the waterfront committee, and myself and Councillor McCann. So it's good to see all these different parties coming together and working together. There's no like not them and us kind of mentality anymore, and I think that will help things kind of move forward and you know be beneficial for the town. So that's my report.
Thank you. I'll be a little bit different. I've got a few things here. Council staff and public. June 7th, I chaired an AMO Social Policy and Human Services Transformation Task Force meeting for AMO. And on the 8th was the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting, and council should have received the administration report from that meeting and the housing and homelessness note as well, or study. Okay, good. June 10th, I attended the Hannah's 73rd wedding anniversary at the Seguin Drop-In Center. I tell you, what an amazing couple for 73 years together. June 14th was the pool committee meeting. June 16th, I attended the grand opening of Home Comfort Care at 42 James Street, a business that is certainly a welcome addition to downtown and the community with our growing silver population. A great variety of products for those that need some specialized equipment and services in their senior years. June 18th, I received a special treat. My wife and I, along with a few others, were given a tour of the Viking ship Polaris, which is a sister ship of the Octanus. And this was the first visit for the Polaris to Parry Sound. And Vlad and Navi from our Economic Development Department were there as well. And we received a plaque from the ship. I know that can't really see it that well, but I'll hand it around so in a minute if you want to have a look at it. But we received other plaques like this from other ships as well. And we had a chat about having something in the town entrance or whatever that, you know, people can see these sort of commemorative plaques from the different ships that visit our harbor. And I think that would be a welcome addition and something that people can see. There was also a booklet that we were given that can go along with this on the Polaris and Octanus. The Octanus has been here a few times already, but this was the maiden voyage for the Polaris, as it's only 1 year old. So what I will say is, what a ship, and you're really not lacking for anything on that ship. Let me tell you, it is truly, truly amazing. So when this is done, this can be given to Rebecca for whatever, but we start, they can have a look at that. That ship can host about 370 passengers, has numerous flotation craft and 2 submarines. And the 2 submarines that were on board were George and Ringo. They are yellow submarines. And the owner of the ship line's favorite band is the Beatles. So on the Octanus, John and Paul are on there. So very good sense of humor. They also have scientists on board, recording a variety of data everywhere they go. They're checking for water quality, air quality, zebra mussel information, and a variety of other information. Biosphere staff are on board doing lectures. I have asked through Vlad's department for the information that they're collecting on the scientific data, because that would really be great to know what that data that they're collecting through on Georgian Bay here. And we can try to keep that in our records as well, so we know what the water quality is like, and a variety of other things. And finally, June 18th, I attended the grand opening of the Wing House in downtown Parry Sound. They were extremely busy, beyond belief, which was probably good for them, but also maybe not so good. But anyway, the food was good. And it certainly adds another food choice for people in the area to add to, and for downtown as well. I think it's a good draw. So lots of good things, and just looking forward to more good things to come our way. So that's my report, and on with the agenda. And after talking about Vlad, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the EDO's activity report for 2022 be approved as presented. Vlad, is there anything you want to highlight from your report? Okay, very good. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff and public. In my presentation, I will start with the brief description of the past year from economic development perspective, then continue with a bit more detailed description of a very successful cruise ship season in 2022, touch upon the current cruise ship season, provide a couple examples of business supports extended to local companies in last year and current year, explain our role in support of displaced Ukrainians in our town, and complete with a list of economic development initiatives for this year and couple years to come. So, okay, first of all, I want to state that the town's economy recovered very quickly last year after the pandemic, obviously, and couple sectors performed exceptionally well, specifically construction and tourism. We had strong, as you all know, strong construction season with 66 building permits issued, total value of almost $15 million. And I want to especially mark the completed commercial project, that is the Best Western Plus Hotel that opened last November. It's the first 3.5-star establishment in our town. Business travel is oriented and obviously an excellent addition to the town's hospitality sector. And we already teamed up with the management of this hotel and used it as an anchor hotel for a Forum conference that was held in town in early May of this year. In February of last year, an out-of-town developer bought a 10-acre waterfront property that we all usually refer to as former Shell property. A major development which will be done in phases, in 3 phases. What's important for our department that already in phase number 1, they plan to build a Marriott brand hotel. Marriott hotels are classified as upscale hotels. They are all 4-star hotels. So this will be the first 4-star hotel, not only in our town, but in the area as well. And it will help better position the town of Parry Sound as a viable destination for top-class conferences and similar events, not only on the regional level, that is for the Northern Ontario, but also interprovincial and maybe even or national level as well. And lastly, on this slide, I would also like to spend some time talking about Legion Spirits. a small startup, but quite critical for our business ecosystem. This is the first craft distillery in our area, not only in town, but in the whole district. What's also positive, the owners of this business are strong in marketing, and they have already started to attract new visitors, tourists, including cruise ship passengers. And talking about cruise ship passengers, I want to move to the cruise ship season of 2022. We had a record-breaking season last year with 20 cruise ship visits by 3 operators and 4 different cruise ships. So overall, we achieved 40% growth over pre-pandemic season in 2019, when we only had 12 cruise ship visits. Generally speaking, cruising on Great Lakes is doing fine, and all indicators are pointing to the fact that this sector of tourism industry will continue to experience steady growth, on average 20% per year for the next 5 years at least. And our department focus was on motivating local businesses to engage directly with the cruise ship operators and benefit from this growth. And because cruise ship operators firm their itineraries approximately 2 years in advance, by the end of last year, we already had a very good picture of the 2023 cruise ship season. And as you can see from this table, Parry Sound is quite well positioned among all Canadian ports that on the Great Lakes that service cruise ships. We will have, so this year, we will have another record-breaking season with 33 cruise ship visits by 4 operators and 6 different cruise ships. I think the table speaks for itself. We, a small community, we're doing very well in this and in industry. Oops. And now on this slide, I want to talk about, present couple business supports that were extended to local businesses. And again, I want to start with the fact that business recovery was very strong in our area last year, in particular in the hospitality sector. We got 3 new restaurants as well as a brand new hotel, which I already described. And our focus was on support of local business, but also maintaining relations with out-of-town investors who expressed interest in our area pre-COVID, and then, of course, put their projects on hold due to the pandemic. So some specific examples of business supports are the following. We helped Trestle Brewery find a location for their new distribution warehouse. Initially, they approached us with a request to locate some industrial land for this purpose within the town limits. That was impossible, but we did point them to the industrial park, and they were successful in acquiring one lot for their project there. I helped owners of Legion Spirits to hire a highly skilled distiller from Ukraine. He relocated with his family to the town last July, and he already incorporated or introduced a number of proprietary recipes to the product range of that craft distillery. I also helped Richard Boddington, and I guess all of us know him, or at least heard his name, a well-known Anglo-Canadian film producer who already accomplished 4 film projects in our area since 2012. So early last year, he approached me with a request to help him get funding from NOHFC. So we supported his application, and eventually he got the funding, and he will start his next film project in our town. It will be filmed in the town of Parry Sound later this summer. And finally, the last point is an example of out-of-town investors. So Singular Solutions is a company from North York. They developed a technology to convert standard plastic into biodegradable food packaging. They do have a small operation, production base in North York, but they decided to expand and move into our area. So in early 2020, they bought 3 lots at the industrial park, but then put the project on hold because of the pandemic. And last August, they informed me that they were thinking to pull out, to abandon the project, to cancel the project and move out of the industrial park. So I got involved with them, with the owners in a series of extensive negotiations. And by the end of last year, they reconsidered and decided to continue with the project here in the industrial park. So just a couple of weeks ago, I met with them in Parry Sound, and they reconfirmed their intentions to continue with this project, and they will start clearing the lots and doing foundation works as of August of this year, with plans to commence production sometime mid-summer of 2024. It's a 5 million investment, which will create at least 20 full-time jobs for locals. Important project as it diversifies. First of all, it provides year-round employment, but it also diversifies the local economy. On this slide, I would like to spend some time explaining our involvement with the help extended to displaced Ukrainians. In February of last year, Russia invaded Ukraine, and in about 2 months, millions of Ukrainians left the country for Europe, a major humanitarian crisis since World War II. I have to mention that in this case, the government of Canada was very quick to react and created a special, unique 3-year visa for Ukrainians with a very simplified and straightforward application process. So by the end of last year, around 200,000 Ukrainians moved from Europe to Canada. Many of those landed in the GTA, obviously. So in April of last year, I connected with the president of the local Rotary Club, and we decided to help some of those Ukrainians relocate and resettle in our area. And of course, it's a large undertaking. So other organizations were involved, like YMCA, some other nonprofits, a lot of local businesses, and numerous volunteers. They all participated in this ongoing project, and as a result, by the end of last year, 85 Ukrainians moved to Parry Sound and surrounding municipalities. My role in this project is basically to match adult Ukrainians with local businesses, and I can report that all Ukrainians are currently employed, and they work at companies like Stanley Boats and Crofters, but also several local restaurants, medical establishments, the hospital, groceries, tourism establishments. So all sorts of local businesses have agreed to employ these Ukrainians. And what I'm hearing from business owners, only positive feedback. Basically, they only ask me to bring them more Ukrainians, which is doable. But of course, we have one major constraint, which is affordable housing, which is in short supply, but it's common knowledge. And lastly, on this slide, I have listed a couple of key economic development initiatives for this year and beyond. So first, we have already restarted Move Up marketing campaign. It was originally launched in 2019. Basically, what it means, we goal, we connect with businesses, various businesses in the GTA and Southern Ontario, and basically educate them about opportunities to conduct business in our area, specifically all the funding opportunities of funding programs, available through provincial, federal, and regional funds. And the idea is to attract some of them to relocate to our area. And for this year, we hope to be able to move 1 to 2 such companies to Parry Sound by the end of December. I also plan to conduct a couple of farm tours for international investors now that international air travel has been restored and COVID protocols abolished. Basically, it's the same concept as Move Up, just campaign just for international. So we bring international visitors, business people to Parry Sound for a day or two. We show them around. We take them to the industrial park, to the business park at the airport, to the waterfront. We arrange meetings with funders, NOHFC, Fed North, CBDC, Northern Ontario Angels. And generally speaking, we show them the open. They're in Canada, so they're already interested in investing and doing business in Canada. Our role is to motivate them to invest here in the Parry Sound district. Next, we will continue obviously to work with the cruise ship operators to grow ship visits to Parry Sound. Our target is to hit 40 visits next year, and up to 50 visits in 2025. In addition, we've started to promote Parry Sound as an overnight stop and turnaround port. Obviously, overnight ships overnight in here open more opportunity for business, especially for waterfront restaurants, for trestle probably, and already Pearl Mist, one of the 4 cruise ship operators, will do 2 overnight stops in July and August during this season. Turnaround port, it's a more complex undertaking, and hopefully, if it may happen, but probably in 5 to 7 years from now, because it will require certain infrastructure investment, specifically in the dock area. But it will, if this happens, it will be, even with one cruise ship operator, it will be a major win for the town, as what happens with turnaround ports, they become the first and last in the ports in the itinerary of cruise ship operators. So if it's the first, if it's the beginning of the itinerary, then of course passengers and crew members assemble in that city or town 2-3 days in advance prior to sailing, and of course they have to stay in local hotels, go to eat in local restaurants, do some shopping, use local services, do sightseeing. So it's a major infusion of tourist dollars to local economies. So we're looking to that as well, but it's a major undertaking, as I already mentioned. We will actively collaborate with Downtown Business Association, Parry Sound Chamber of Commerce, and RTO 12 in encouraging more local, small and medium-sized enterprises to engage with the cruise ship industry, and this will be done through various training sessions where we plan to educate local businesses on how to be more effective in dealing with cruise ship passengers, but also there is a discussion with RTO 12, and they may come up with some funding. They would like to run a campaign to offer certain discounts at retail outlets, in like a coupon discount at retail outlets in downtown Parry Sound, and those coupons will be distributed to arriving cruise ship passengers for them to use at local shops. I also plan to get more involved with the Ontario film industry. I think we could do way more than just one movie in 3 or 4 years, and the plan would be to entice film producers to come to our area and do at least one feature film per year in Parry Sound. If, for comparison, for example, in North Bay, they currently do 16 to 18 film projects a year, and I think we are positioned as well as North Bay and can and have capacity for more film projects as well. And finally, I will continue to support the resettlement of Ukrainians to Parry Sound as long as the conflict continues. Last year, as I already stated, we had 85 Ukrainians relocated to our town, and we hope to increase this number to up to 150 by the end of this year. So this completes my presentation, and I will be happy to answer your questions, but thank you for your attention.
Oh, thank you for that. It's really good. Councilor Keith.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple questions, Vlad. I guess the one is the comment, but it's a question also. When I look at, and I appreciate Parry Sound, maybe 50, we're 50% down, shall we say, we're number 4 of 8. But I still think, even though we're a little town, when I see Sault Ste. Marie had more cruise ships, and seeing how we can get, how can we, even though we're small, doesn't mean that we can't be mighty. So I'd like to know, have you been doing some research to maybe get an idea, what are they doing, and what else maybe can we do? Because we got a really great community, and small isn't good enough. I don't want to hear small, I want to hear number 1. That's my first question.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, basically Sault Ste. Marie is doing a little bit better just because of their geographical location. Some of the itineraries are 7 days in length, others are 14 to 15, 2 weeks. And those ships that go from the American side, in some cases, go to the upper lakes through Sault Ste. Marie. So that's why they get a little bit more business than us. But again, as mentioned in my presentation, we are already in discussions with a number of current cruise ship operators to increase their visits, and this will happen to Parry Sound as of next year. More importantly, we are in talks with couple new cruise ship operators, and they will be coming to town beginning from 2025. So we will definitely see an increase of cruise ship visits. How it will compare to Sault Ste. Marie, I'm not so sure, but I think that by 2025, we may move up on that table at least by 1 notch at least.
But one of the things, just to coincide with Councillor Keith's question, is they do surveys. And how are we ranked in the surveys with guest satisfaction and everything that they have?
Well, every cruise ship operator conducts survey of their passengers, and they compile a feedback report. And what we're hearing, at least from ProMist, we are very high on the satisfaction list. In fact, many passengers mark Parry Sound as #1 port as far as positive experience on their tour. So I think we're doing quite well in this respect as well.
I have my second question, thank you, because I had 2 questions. And that has to do with the Ukrainians, and the goal is to have, hopefully by the end of the year, 150 Ukrainians in our community. So all I'm wondering about is what is the plan, seeing as there's 85 there, we know there's housing issues. And so if you have more people come in, what's the plan to try to accommodate that? Because it's a great idea, but can you piece that together for me, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as I mentioned, I am very heavily involved with this process, and fortunately, again, as I mentioned in my presentation, we had a good construction season in 2022, and several new housing projects are coming on the market, including affordable housing. So like Victory School, for example. So we plan to, thank you. We plan to use those new options to accommodate those Ukrainians. I have to point out, as I mentioned, as soon as they arrive to Parry Sound, Ukrainians usually spend a month or two with volunteers living free of charge in their homes. But then by the end of the first month, and very rarely by the end of the second month, all of the adult Ukrainians are gainfully employed, and they can pay for their rent, and that's what they do usually, especially if it's a family with two bread earners. Some of them actually are renting condos, which as we know are fairly expensive, but with two salaries they can manage apparently. So that's why I'm saying we could take as many Ukrainians to Parry Sound as possible. There are tens of thousands of them in Toronto, and they're not happy. Many of them are not happy there because it's really very expensive to be there, and there is a disconnect because it's a huge city, and they're newcomers to this country. So as soon as we have opportunities to provide some affordable housing, and that's actually the task of the Rotary Club, they connect with those Ukrainians in Toronto, for example, and they advise them that we have an apartment or a house available. So then we move them up here, and my job is to find employment for those Ukrainians when they arrive.
Okay, so I have a few questions. I'm going to tell you how this goes. So the next one after Councilor Keith is Councilor McCann, then Bolesky, McDonald, and Bournemouth. I guess you're the last one then. Okay, so Councilor McCann, you're next.
This is not a big question, but I'm just kind of curious. I noticed in some of the literature, do most of the cruise boats follow us the same route, visiting one town or port from another? And when they turn around and come back, do they follow the same route, or do they return another way? Kind of curious to know if there's some sort of common routes that are used by all of the operators. You say there's 4 operators with 6 ships. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are 4 operators that come to the port of Parry Sound. On the Great Lakes, there are currently 6 or 7 cruise ship operators, so not all of them call on our port. So that's one of the tasks that I have in front of me, to talk to those operators to motivate them to consider Parry Sound as a suitable port for their passengers. As far as routes, well, they are in competition with each other. So obviously they do have some differences in routing, in selecting ports where they stop. Some of the itineraries are 7 days in length, others are 2 weeks. But usually what happens, there is the starting point at some of the bigger ports, like in Toronto, and then the ship goes up. If it's a 2-week route, then they could go up to Thunder Bay. And then, of course, at Thunder Bay, those passengers go ashore, and the new team of passengers, so to speak, comes on board, and that same ship goes down on the same route, but down to Toronto. So it's like that.
That's interesting. Now, I know from our Waterfront Advisory Committee meetings that we've talked about the schedule, and it's getting heavier, and it's exciting to see that. With some of the boats docking in the big sound there, can we accommodate 2 or more cruise ships at the same time if they actually are anchoring out in the sound like that? And not to mention the fact that there might still be room for a 3rd one because if the numbers are there, I mean, there's only so many days in the summer season, so it sounds like we have a few busy years ahead of us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, very good question. Actually, specifically because we have such an explosive growth of cruise ship visits since the last year. First of all, yes, it is possible for our staff and support like personnel, like security people on dock to accommodate 2 cruise ships at the same time. And already this year, this will be happening in July, August, and I think in September as well, when we will have 2 ships simultaneously at the dock. But also there is an option for 1 ship to be anchored and another one to be docked. We have not entertained the idea of having 3 ships in town, maybe in 2 years from now, but for now, I think 2 is quite enough, but we can handle it successfully.
Right,
That's no
right.
problem.
It's rather ambitious.
I
Okay,
tell
thank you.
We are becoming the Mediterranean of the Great Lakes.
I like that.
Yeah, that's right. We should have T-shirts with that. Georgian Bay, the Mediterranean of the Great Lakes. Next, Councilor Boleski.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very good presentation, and just a couple of things I noted, and maybe the answer is already here. You were looking for commercial land, and you were noticing that you were putting them in the industrial park, and you were also looking at the airport. Should Parry Sound be looking at getting more industrial land of their own, or is that possible for us to get more industrial land?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, personally, I would be happy to have more industrial land, but available, but this will make my life easier, of course. But I have to point out that industrial park will open up 22 new service lots as of mid-late July of this year, and this is an excellent option for a manufacturing company to locate there, not far from the town, and extremely attractive price points even for service land at the industrial park. Plus, there is still land available for lease at the business park at the airport. So I think as far as industrial land, we are well served by these 2 parks, the industrial park and the business park. I think it would be beneficial to the town's economy to have probably more commercial lots available in town, but as far as industrial, I think we're okay with the current situation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a follow-up to that. The land at the industrial park and the airport doesn't pay a lot of tax to Parry Sound. I don't think Parry Sound gets any of the taxes out of it, do they? None. Hey, I'm just looking at it that way.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, it is correct as far as tax base. I'm looking at this a little bit from a different angle. Any new business in the industrial park or the airport, especially in the industrial park, because they tend to be bigger there, they create employment, and many of those jobs are being or will be filled by local residents from the town. So I think maybe indirectly, but this will benefit the town as well.
Well, thank you. My comment that it's great that we've got jobs, and that's the main thing. It would be nice if we got a little bit of tax from the building that they were working in. That's all. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just was looking at a different way. That's all. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you very much. And the film industry. Back 15 or 16, I guess it was 2015 or 16, there was I believe a short movie or a series made in Parry Sound. I remember watching it anyway. Maybe it was done before that. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but it was shot in Parry Sound. 15, 16. I remember it being shot on the main street anyway. Maybe Councillor Borneman would remember.
I don't remember the name, but I know that DBA had like a Walk of Fame thing. They had stars on the sidewalks on the main street.
Yeah.
There have been a number of programs.
Sorry to just jump in, but it was an excellent movie. It was an excellent show anyway, and it was nice to see. And I watched it on, I believe CBC carried it. It was very entertaining and I would like to see that again if you can get that going. Thank you. That's all for me.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I totally agree. As I mentioned, I think the town is in excellent location and close proximity to the GTA. And we can benefit from general growth of film industry in Northern Ontario. As I said, I used to work in North Bay, so I know for a fact they moved from 6 to 8 film projects a year to 16 to 18 in just 4 to 5 years. Of course, they have a dedicated team that supports this industry, but we can do way better than just one movie in 3 to 4 years. And I plan to work together with James Cox, who is our Regional Economic Development Officer, and he's a little bit more involved with the Northern Ontario film industry. I do plan to meet with him soon and discuss opportunities how to attract more film studios to our area. Thank you.
What I heard was there was a lot of politics with NOHFC in North Bay and Sudbury. That's why.
No comment.
No, no, I'll say it. Okay. Council McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, my comment was also going to be on the film industry. I think we recall prior to COVID and even before that, we were quite the hotspot for films and television series, and then that kind of petered off. It was Northern Rescue, I think, was the TV series that was filmed here for one season, and it doesn't appear that it's being renewed. But yeah, I'm just kind of wondering what's cooled off. Obviously, COVID shut everything down, but in regards to location, what has kind of deterred the studios from coming back here to work again?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think actually COVID was the main reason when everything stopped and movements were restricted, and that actually was a major problem for this specific sector, film industry. As I said, we will. There are no major problems as far as Parry Sound not to become more involved with film industry. I think we just need to make a more concerned effort on promoting our area to film producers. That's it. It's just a question of marketing to the right people.
Great, thank you. Where do we know where this Richard Boddington film is going to be taking place, the filming?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can only tell you that it will be shot entirely in town, in the town of Parry Sound, not in the area, but in the town of Parry Sound as of August.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think one issue that the film industry had in Parry Sound, the same as other spaces, accommodation. When large scale productions, especially during the summer months, it was difficult for them. But my question, Vlad, relates to RTO 12 and whether or not we're seeing an active presence in the community. Tourism still is king, and RTO 12 is the marketing agency. Are we seeing activity from them locally, or are we being left to our own devices?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, very good question, but I really want to mention that you are correct as far as film industry having problems, especially during summer with accommodation. This is something we are facing right now in our discussion with Richard, for example. For his crew, he's looking for an office in downtown to lease an office, and it's an issue. But thanks for a new hotel, and hopefully for the other hotel, this will be resolved in coming years positively. I believe. As far as RTO 12, again, you are correct, Councillor. We have been in discussions with RTO 12 for years. We've tried to get them more involved with specifically Parry Sound area. As of this year, we're seeing a real positive movement in this direction to cooperate more with us from RTO 12 management. Just 2 months ago, they hired a new manager who will be Luke Preston, who will be responsible for communication with the communities, municipalities like ours, and he visited Parry Sound last week. We met at the dock. I showed him how we operate, how we collaborate with the cruise ship operators. We went on the shuttle bus tour. He was really impressed with our setup, so to speak, and he assured us that April from DBA was also there. So he assured us that RTO 12 is looking to partner to generate more joint projects with the town, and they are looking to extend some funding to us, specifically in the development of cruise ship tourism.
Councillor Waterman?
Well, thank you for that, Vlad. I just want to, this isn't a question. I just wanted to congratulate you for getting Cogeco over here to do a very positive review of the cruise business. They need to have their feet held to the fire and realize that they're serving Muskoka and Parry Sound, not just Muskoka.
Thank
you for
you.
your report this evening.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I also want to comment that yes, indeed, we're starting to build good, positive relationship with Cogeco. And after that interview, James already advised that he is planning to come back again and do another interview maybe in August. So yeah, I think it's good, positive PR, good for our area. Mhm.
Councillor Ashford is the next one on the list.
Thank you very much for extensive presentation. And I appreciate the huge amount of stuff you're doing all the time. So I wanted to thank you for that for sure, because I certainly, I think I speak for a lot of people in our community when I say we really enjoy how the town's developing. It's kind of exciting. My question today is comes from discussions my wife's grandmother used to have with me all the time about the old days of Belvedere Hotel and the Queen visiting and those kind of things. And so I was very excited to hear about the Marriott. One of the things with the Marriott is it's a Fairfield by Marriott, which is kind of their like 4-star level hotel, which presumably the new king would not stay in a 4-star. Is there anything we can do to make it a Westin or a Marriott straight up, or get that 5-star level? Is it our place? Is there anything we can kind of do to try to convince them, or at least to kind of get it 5-star ready so that the build is going to be maybe transformable? Because the Fairfields do look quite a bit different than a straight Marriott.
You, Mr. Mayor, thanks for the clarification, first of all, because up until this moment, I was under the impression that they were building a Marriott hotel, which of course you clearly explained is a bit different. Unfortunately, I don't think we have a lot, at least my department, I don't think I have a lot of clout to talk to a developer as far as what type of hotel to put there. I think they already have some certain agreements with that chain. But what we have been thinking and in discussion with couple developers from the GTA area, there is still there is strong interest to redevelop the ex-OPP property. And if the council, if the town will get that property and agree to put up some complex like a hotel, maybe a conference center as well, we could look into, and you're correct, we need a 5-star hotel, especially on the waterfront. Excellent point. But I think maybe if we start developing, if we start inviting developers for that property, ex-OPP, maybe then we could put up a 5-star hotel like a Hilton at that location.
Okay, Councilman McCann.
Thank you. So going back to the film industry, and we're talking about North Bay and Sudbury, my understanding is I think they've actually built sound stages or studios up there that have become more of a home-based business rather than just crews moving into the area to do their filming. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at least as far as North Bay, and I'm quite
Yeah.
familiar with what's going on there. That's correct. But even without those additional amenities, 3-4 years ago, North Bay was able to attract 10-12 projects a year.
Really?
So we can, I think, probably accommodation could be an issue, but it's being resolved as we speak with new developments in town. And also, well, I have to be honest, we are small. Our department is just 2 persons, and last year and this year we were very focused on A, cruise ship industry development, and B, 4NOM conference, which, as you know, was quite a big event for the town. From today, I will take on myself to really look into the film industry and try to connect directly with some players, as they say, and maybe bring more film directors than just Richard Boddington.
Well, if you can figure out how to get more than 24 hours into a day, you could be a rich man. So actually, why I mentioned that is because I was wondering, when crews come into the area and they shoot the films, with the post-production is, I mean, doing the filming is only half the job. The post-production, distribution, that sort of thing is a whole nother set. Now, is that being done in places like Toronto or do they do that in Sudbury or North Bay? I'm just wondering if that's another component that could grow in our area.
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, they do it in North Bay, at least. Canada has a post-production studio. It's a significant investment. It's several $1 million to create a state-of-the-art post-production studio, but it's really a money-making machine. I agree. Not just to shoot a movie, but also to do at least some of the post-production in-house, so to speak, in this location. Well, again, this is something that we need to address, to look into. It's a big project, so I right now I'm not prepared to give a definitive answer, but it's something to look moving forward, of course.
Well, of course, yeah, something to think for the future. I was just thinking with all the cruise ships coming in, that'd be a great backdrop for some movie script, if anyone's listening.
I
thinking
totally
of it.
agree. Yes.
Thank you.
Are we good now? All in favor? Okay, good, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
very much appreciated. Moved by Council McCann, second by Councilor Borneman, whereas the Charles W. Stockey Center are submitting a temporary sidewalk patio extension for the purpose of serving alcohol for Parry Sounds Rib Fest and Canada Day celebrations scheduled to occur June 30th to July 2nd, 2023. And whereas the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, AGCO, amended the provincial framework for temporary patios, which come into effect on January 1st, 2023, and requires that municipal approval be obtained for licenses prior to selling or serving liquor on a temporary patio. Now therefore be resolved, the Council of the Town of Parry Sound supports the approval for a temporary patio at the Charles W. Stockey Center located at 2 Bay Street from June 30th, 2023 to July 2nd, 2023 to permit alcohol sales. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford. Whereas 1 in 6 homes have been found to be food insecure in the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. Report titled "The 2022 Cost of Eating Well." And whereas 1 in 5 children in Ontario live in a food insecure household. And whereas the donation request for the Parry Sound High School is not otherwise eligible for the town's municipal assistance program. Therefore, council approves a one-time donation of blank dollars to the Parry Sound High School towards the food nutrition program. I think Ms. Phillips, you have some information on this.
The report includes information about how much is in the budget for council to make miscellaneous donations. So there's $3,500 in the budget to go towards miscellaneous donations as council wishes.
Councilor McCann?
This money stays in with the Parry Sound High School students.
Council can propose whichever donation that amount that they wish. So 3,500 is the total amount that council has to give out to anyone that requests donations throughout the year. So that's just per council's wishes. So at the last meeting, someone proposed an amount, $1,000, but it's up to council on what they feel is appropriate.
Councilor McDonald?
I was going to move.
Yeah, I'd still like to propose the contribution of $1,000, as I mentioned at the last meeting.
Councilor McDonald did suggest that. You're seconding that? Okay, all right. Any discussion, Councilor Borneman?
I'm fully supportive of this, but you know, Parry Sound is only one of the municipalities that sends students to Parry Sound High School. I think assuming this is passed, it should be circulated to our neighboring municipalities looking for similar donations, we'll say.
Councilor Keith?
My only comment was not only similar, but we would be recommending that they match.
They match it.
That's what I would like. Thank you.
Yeah. I think with the amount that we're talking about, it should be a mover and seconder, but we have $1,000 to begin with. That's the first thing on this. So, Councilor Borneman?
The reason I suggested similar rather than matching is some are bigger and some are smaller and some will
We can try to match.
we can
But-
try.
But we're discussing the amount right now. So any more discussion on the amount? All in favor of the amount? Okay, and that's carried. No one opposed? No. Are you opposed? Of the amount?
I suppose I would just think that the first spot, the Parry Sound taxpayer is on the hook for a lot. And if this is 3,500 for the next is it just until Christmas or is it until the next budget? Then we
The
just
end of
want
the
to
year.
make sure we have enough if we need to support anybody else as well. But I support the idea of, you know, either doing the average of what everybody submits or just making sure that we send it out to everybody so that we're not the first call whenever there's a problem.
So we had approval for 1,000. Was agreed upon. Now, another amendment is that this be circulated to the surrounding municipalities to try and match this amount. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Keith and Councillor McCann. Got that, Mr. Johnson? Any discussion on where it goes? Councillor McCann?
I think if we use the wording, match or support or meet this, rather than just say, you come up with 1,000 because we did it. I think I think there's more of a friendly competition or a friendly, gentlemanly, diplomatic way of approaching the other municipalities. As Councillor Borneman said, some are bigger, some are smaller. And so some of them would have less students in the high school. So extending some sort of invitation to join us in this generosity or match it, I think is a good way to word it.
Councillor Keith?
Well, I don't have a problem with the words try to match, but I think we have to remember the Parry Sound High School is a big high school that brings in students from all over. And whether we want to count exactly how many we have in Parry Sound and then count how many we have in each municipality, the town of Parry Sound, we must remember it's the town's infrastructure that's adding to that high school, supporting that high school. So I think that we're being more than friendly to put the words in, try to match, because I do agree with the comment that Councillor Ashford made a moment ago is, like the taxpayer Parry Sound, we have to keep that in mind too. So I like at least try to match.
This should go down to MAC tier area as well. And because those students do come up to Parry Sound High School as well, so. Okay. All in favor of that? That's carried. As amended. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, whereas in 1996, the Government of Canada declared June 21st National Aboriginal Day and renamed in 2017 to National Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate the contribution of Indigenous peoples to Canadian society as Canada's first peoples and to recognize their different cultures. And whereas the Constitution of Canada, Aboriginal peoples of Canada include First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, whereas the Indigenous peoples of Canada have made and continue to make valuable contributions to Canadian society, and it is considered appropriate that there be in each year a day to mark and celebrate these contributions. And whereas many Indigenous peoples celebrate the summer solstice, which has an important symbolism within their cultures, and whereas the town of Parry Sound will continue its efforts to strengthen partnerships with other levels of government, community organizations, as well as the public and private sectors to honor and protect the rights of Indigenous peoples. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Parry Sound hereby proclaims June 21st, 2023 to be National Indigenous Peoples Day in the town of Parry Sound. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Bielanski and second by Councillor Ashford, that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound hereby supports the Township of the Archipelago's resolution attached to Schedule A as submitted to and approved in the June 2023 by the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative with respect to the following calls of action. That the province of Ontario continue working with municipalities and municipal organizations on the implementation of Bill 23 and other housing initiatives to identify a range of solutions that will address the lack of attainable and affordable housing in the province. While building new housing units is a sustainable manner that is consistent with the province's and municipalities' mandate of keeping people and property safe from natural hazards and protecting the health of our essential freshwater resources, and that the province of Ontario create a permanent, predictable, and dedicated infrastructure program to ensure that municipalities can service lands for housing and address growth pressures on existing water and road systems without placing the burden on existing property taxpayers. And that the province of Ontario take a regional approach to the implementation of Bill 23 and other housing policy initiatives to respond to varying needs of urban, suburban, rural, northern communities in addressing attainable housing needs and environmental protection. And that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario and Quebec, the Ontario Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Ontario Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Ontario Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the governors of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, Federal Minister of Environment and Climate Change, MP Terry Duguid, Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, MP Vance Bodaway, Niagara Center MP, okay, and then MP Scott Aitchison, Parry Sound, Muskoka, the 6 International Joint Commissioners, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all municipalities in the province of Ontario. Discussion. A lot there.
The kitchen sink.
Yep. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford, the Council of Corporation of Town of Parry Sound hereby supports the resolution passed by the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, FNOM, attached to Schedule A with respect to the following. 1, support for the provincial ask for federal operating funding for the National Housing Strategy initiatives, and that the funding be repurposed from the main National Housing Co-Investment Fund program line, as service managers across the province have indicated their challenges with meeting the terms of the federal proposal, particularly as they relate to cost matching and meeting the requirements for greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, and accessibility. 2, incorporate need-driven indicators into the funding allocation formulas for all federal programs. 3, expand reaching home funding to all service managers. 4, support the provincial position in relation to the provinces and territories repair fund under the National Housing Co-Investment Fund. 5, support for provincial position on the application-based $4 billion federal housing accelerator fund. Request that the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation consider actions taken by municipalities under the province's housing supply action plans into account when assessing municipal applications, recognizing that these initiatives have the potential to significantly increase the supply of housing in communities. 7, request that the federal government heed the precedent of social housing agreement and recommit itself to funding operating costs that often stretch out over decades for a lifetime of a housing project. 8, request that the federal government provide additional funding for Ontario in order to deal with shortages of safe and affordable housing, and at the same time build safer and healthier communities for all residents. And that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the following for consideration and support: Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion Ahmed Hussein, MP Scott Aitchison, Premier Doug Ford, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing Steve Clark, MPP Graydon Smith, leaders of the federal and provincial opposition parties, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, FNOM, and also on there should be FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Yeah. This one, I really have to appreciate what Miss Johnson did. She shortened this from 3 pages to a page and about a page and a half. Thank you. Huh? Oh, it's here attached. Councilor Borneman.
I was just gonna say that I think the main point of these resolutions is though that the senior levels of government have to get in the game, and that, you know, they've set these targets, and if they don't come to the table, they'll remain as targets. There's no way that they'll ever be met unless they do participate actively here. So
You're right. You're absolutely right. They have to come to the table. The funding that they have there and the programs that they have are not working the way that they should, especially in rural and northern Ontario. I don't know about the other provinces, but that's the way in Ontario anyway, rural and northern Ontario, some of these housing funding are not working. They have to also come to the realization that right now, to build affordable and attainable is almost impossible because of the cost of material, labor, and other supplies or whatever to make something work. And if they want attainable and affordable, then they have to make those programs much easier for developers to use that money, or municipalities or housing service managers, so that those units can be built. And if they don't do it, then it's a disservice to the rest of this country and this province. So they need to collectively get together, listen to the people that are trying to do the work, and pull this together, because otherwise it's not working. And that's what everybody sees. So get the blinders off, dive into reality, and let's get this thing done. There's my rant for the evening. Any further comments, questions? No, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Yeah, when I first saw this resolution, Ms. Johnson forwarded it to me, it was like, oh boy. Councillor Bournemouth.
Well, I do recall in the past, some mayors have had the clerk read these lengthy resolutions, your worship. So just as motivation, you may want to try that tactic in future.
Well, I believe Ms. Johnson's smart enough that she realized that this was the way to go. Thank goodness. So moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that bylaw number 2023-73-54 being a bylaw to declare 493-205-000-305-300 5.5 acres located at the north end of North Tuttle Street surplus be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. I'm opposed to this bylaw. I feel that it was advertised, there was no interest at this point in time. And the thing is, there wasn't interest right now. We have to, from my viewpoint, we also have to think about the taxpayer. And if there's no interest right now, I don't see any problem with just keeping our land as it is, because some developer may come along. We may end up with some idea down the road that's a really good idea. So I just think that don't put it up for surplus right now, because there may be a good reason why down the road we do need it. So I don't know why we would just declare it surplus and see how quick we can get rid of it for somebody who might be proposing.
Yeah, Chief Thompson.
Just for a little bit of clarity for council's knowledge, this was not advertised as an RFP for people to bid upon. That was not what the advertisement was for. The advertisement was to advise the public the council would be considering declare it surplus. And that is simply to create some nimbleness for the future if there was proposals to come forward, so that a council could deal with them at that time. The intent of the advertising was never to solicit proposals. So I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on what the advertising was actually for.
Councillor Keith, are you okay with that explanation?
Yes, I think that clarifies it a little bit better, because I think when you read it, the public reads it, they could have that same confusion. So thank you.
Okay. All right, good. Okay. Councillor McCann?
Well, two questions, I guess. Was there any consideration at any time about issuing an RFP for this land? Much may be the same way as that we had issued a request or for proposals for where the lighthouse building buildings are now. That's one question. I just don't recall anything.
And I'm going to call 5-minute recess and I think an explanation maybe. You know. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. Okay. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. Hmm? You can withdraw it if you want.
So so I'll just withdraw that last one then for the chief.
Okay, all right. Okay, anything else on this particular bylaw? All in favor then? And that's carried. Appreciate it. And moved by Councilor Ashford, second by Councilor Boleski, that bylaw number 2023-7355 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Ashford, second by Councilor Boleski, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. So prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, July 4th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Stephen Street, entrance via Gibson Street. It will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.